Do you do a lot of these?
I do. Yeah. I try to put 2 episodes out a week. I would do more if I could, but right now, I'm doing
I mean, 2 a
everything.
week is a lot.
Yeah.
That's dope. That's cool.
Scheduling to post and all that. So I just love to create. So I do a ton of stuff. Like I write an article, I do a video, and then I do 2 podcasts every week. I don't know why I do that to myself. Like I have no idea why I do that to myself. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but right. Like if you have something to say, and this is one of the things that I want to talk to you about. Like you put out some pretty emotional stuff around like your brother and how you found Block there. And my wife recently lost her brother and had some stuff. And, my point of saying that is like you have these moments where you have a ton of creativity. And if you don't just open up the gates during those times and let it come out, that it's going to be the other way at other times for whatever reason. And I just feel like when it's in you, you just have to don't throttle it. Like just let it go. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So all right, man, like, is there anywhere that you particularly want to go while we're chatting? Is there anything you got going on that you want to talk about that we can lead into? Otherwise we'll just rock and roll. Like I do kind of an intro preamble so we can.
Biggest thing, I don't know. I like to dissect things. So I just pay attention to how people interview. So whatever you want to do, I'm good. Honestly, I am excited about the new podcast I just launched, but it's video game and esport based. So it's not this typically not,
so kind of, that's actually where I wanted to start was, kind of at what you're doing right now. I saw the launch of your new podcast, which focuses on, the note that I wrote down when I was kind of doing research was like humans that game and stuff. So you already have a podcast that's more associated with business stuff, right? That you co-pilot, you do that with someone else. Now, this is your first solo podcast or just a solo podcast in the scheme of things that you do?
So it's the first solo one. Strange on Purpose is our company podcast. It's my podcast, like it's our podcast. Still my baby. I don't do any editing or anything, but I am a host on it. This one is just straight passion project. I found it just made me so much better, dude. Like it's just, I want to invest in a team or start a team, but just the space in general, it's going to impact everybody. Just, it excites me, man. And I wanted to do something that excited me.
So what took you from just being, from being a gamer to feeling like you wanted to have commentary on it?
Honestly, like I've been thinking about it for like maybe 2 years, dude. Like, damn, I should do something in this. I should really like start it's just fear, like so much fear when you're jumping into something new. I haven't felt it in a long time. So I just kind of held back on it. It wasn't until like my brother that I'm like, okay, like totally afraid, like, damn, I'll probably fuck up. But like, like this could be something cool. It just, there's so much growth in this space. There's a lot of money in it, but also like from a diversity, like standpoint, like you look at NBA or like NFL, NHL, like WNBA, like it's women, it's men, or golf. Like there's a big barrier to entry where like people from inner city can't buy the clubs if they can't afford the country clubs.
Yeah.
Gaming, like computer, like at the grand scheme of thing is $2,000, right? But you got PlayStation, you've got like Xbox, you've got all these cheap consoles, you've got mobile phones, like super like inexpensive, but also women can compete with men and like children can compete with, like it's so interesting. That to me is a future of all entertainment. So I see the potential, and I want to be in it because there is not a lot of people like me in the space, and there's not a lot of people like me communicating to like the business people. So just something I'm excited about, man.
Yeah.
I like testing things and just being able to show people that you don't have to pigeonhole yourself and you can test things, and testing it on myself.
What was the fear in particular? Like what things when you this idea hits you, right? You're wherever you are and you go, you know what? For every reason that you just gave, this feels like something I want to do. Like I want to have some commentary. I want to start to talk through all these really cool aspects of esports and gaming in general. And to be honest with you, I think in many ways, the culture that you just described around gaming is absolutely something that probably just in society, we need more of that type of community today in general. Just we're so people are so crazy. But what was and I think I like to just ask people this question because I think so many of us have projects that we want to engage in and we feel that same fear. So for you, what was it? And like, what kept you to the point where you're like, and then pushed you over? Like, what were those things that kept you from making that move?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm big into strategy. I'm big into dissecting everything. I thought I was doing myself a favor by like planning out, like, this is where we're going to go. This is what I'm going to do. Like, here's all the things that I'm going to try. And I'm like, yeah, I got this. And then like, I wouldn't do the thing. Cause I'm like, oh, then there's this. So I thought I was leaning into my strengths. And one of my business coaches is like, dude, like, you have such a unique ability to like, you're a futurist, but you're a strategist, but you're also like a doer, right? It's like you have this unique ability to plan and do at the same time. And right now you're just overly leaning into that planning side because you're afraid and then he walked me through and I'm like, damn, like I am afraid this is a new space. What if they don't accept me? Like, I'm a business dude. I'm not a video game dude, even though I've always been a gamer, it's just overthinking, over planning, leaning into what I thought was my strengths. But it's just a lot, man. A lot.
Yeah. So I really I find it very interesting and a valuable thought to say that by leaning into what you believed were your strengths in this particular instance, and you kind of felt like you were doing yourself a favor, but actually it was the opposite. Like, and I'd love a little more context or just any like expansion that you can do around maybe what it was exactly that coach, like what got you to say, you know what, like, even though I'm feeling unconfident about this, or like there's some serious resistance that's pulling on my leg, like I'm just going to take this plunge. Like because I think that's a perfectly natural thought. Like it feels very real to me that you'd go, I'm a strategist. These are the things that I've traditionally been very good at. So I'm going to use those to move into this. And all it was really doing was putting the brakes on you, making this move.
Yeah. So I'm a part of this, actually ends this week, but this entrepreneurs accelerator kind of think, like startup accelerator, but for the person. And this business coach is a part of that. I have another business coach that directly just works with our business. She's freaking incredible. So is this guy. But we're talking, and like everyone in that cohort talks about their business, like, where are we at? My business, like, we're good. Like, we're fine. Like, we definitely have our issues and growing pains, but we're fine. Every single call, I would just talk about esports and video games, and I hadn't even started anything yet. And he's like, dude, like, it just bleeds through you, like you get excited. Like my phone case, like, I'm not sure if this is a video thing, but it's a Game Boy, right? Like, just, I love video games. I love that culture. I love the potential there. And I would always talk about it. And he's like, okay, I get it. You need to plan. Like, so schedule out a once an hour thing where you just sit and you plan and you think about the future because that excites you. But then I need you to make a list and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do now, because you keep talking about this. And if you don't let yourself feel that, if you don't let yourself like actually explore that avenue, you're going to burn out. You're not going to be happy, because it's not that I'm losing passion for my day job or anything like that. It's just, I have multiple things that I'm passionate about. So he really just shook me and said, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting thought. One of the things, I don't know, you don't have kids, correct? No kids yet.
I've got a dog.
You got a dog. Okay. Yeah. So this applies to dogs too.
All right.
So when you start having children, you have one kid, right? Unless you have twins, but normally you have one, or most often you have one. And then you have this weird feeling inside you. I have two boys. You have this weird feeling inside you, like, if I have another one, am I gonna love the first one less? Or like you have this irrational but very logical thought that it is a finite pool of love, and by having a second child, now the first one gets less in order to love the second one. And what really happens is you have this bucket of love for the first child, and you just take another bucket, and now your bucket is this big, right? Like, it just gets bigger. Same exact thing with animals. And what I heard you say, and I completely agree with, because it's been true in my own life, is that when you follow, now obviously you can't follow every passion you have, you just be too spread out. But when you can have a few separate passions, even if they're disparate, it actually gives you, like, when you go back to your day job, now that you've started this esports podcast, like, gaming podcast, I bet you almost have even more energy and enthusiasm for what you were doing before, because you have both these things, because you're not Does that make sense? Do you feel that way?
Dude, 1000%. Like I'm more live now than I've ever been, but also like we have a bunch of meetings with, not a bunch, but a handful of meetings with esports teams because of what I've done, because of what my business partner has done. And it's like we make content, so like it makes sense, but like it's something that we're passionate about. So totally, like it just makes us better. Also, like just starting the podcast and doing it on my own has shown me, wow, like we've been recording this entire time for video, not for audio. And that's something I never would have realized if I didn't do it myself, if I wasn't editing. So just a lot of benefits from just doing something different than what you usually do. And it's weird when you say day job to me, because I totally have worked myself back into a job, even though it's mine.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about.
I feel that. I want to give some context to esports too, because I've looked into the space. I don't play video games, not because I'm not interested, but I've found a similar passion for other things that I like to do. I'm also a video creator, and I don't even want to go down all the rabbit holes of things that I enjoy. And you have only so many things, right?
Yeah.
But I get it. Like I see it and in every regard, but I would love for you to break it down, because I'm positive that there are a lot of people who are probably listening who either just maybe don't even know it exists, the whole genre, or two, maybe have heard but disregarded because they don't, they haven't given it the time.
Yeah. Dude, there's a lot of things that I could talk about, but like esports in general, like a lot of the numbers are inflated. Like you'll hear like more people tuned into this than the Super Bowl, but like what really does a view online mean? Because someone can revisit, someone can leave, it could be in the background. They're not actually listening to it. So a lot of numbers are inflated, but there is a lot of attention on like these gamers, on these streamers, on these tournaments. I know like the COD League just started, and like all these teams are opening up these training facilities for gamers. And it sounds weird thinking about it, but to me, like the future of literally all entertainment, you name like any type of entertainment, like the future of entertainment it's immersive. Like it's video games. Video games are the future of fun, to me at least. What that looks like specifically, I would say something like Ready Player One, but there's already like so much money being poured into these teams and into these leagues and into these people. It's ridiculous, man. And it's incredible. And it's amazing to see. I had someone like, we were like going back and forth, and he's like, why would you watch someone like play a game? But if you think about it like football, we're watching someone play a game, we're sitting down on a couch and watching someone play a game. But when it comes to like streamers and gamers, like you're already connected with these people because they're always online, and it's completely different. And it's like that. I'm not sure if this is video, but I'm connecting my hands.
Yeah, no, it is. It's good.
There's so much to explore there.
Yeah. I think, the reason that anyone who just heard that and is still disregarding, what I would say is think about a sport. Like for me, it's tennis, right? I appreciate that tennis takes skill. I have absolutely no way of connecting to the sport of tennis. I just never played it. And to me, I don't find it particularly interesting, even though I appreciate the amount of talent it takes to be good at tennis. But football, baseball, basketball, sports I played, even soccer to a certain extent, golf, like I love watching these sports. And because I played them and I can appreciate like how hard it is to do different things. And all esports is, in my opinion, are people who play these video games going, holy crap, what they're doing is incredibly difficult. And just like you said, it's the same thing as watching live action sports. You have an appreciation for the skill, talent, the amount of work, training that it took for that person to execute that play
1000%.
or whatever.
Some of these thing. Like people like they're putting in like 8 at a minimum hours of work, like it's so rigorous that some people burn out and retire by the time they're 20, like 20 years old. That's ridiculous. And there's a lot of things that need to change so that doesn't happen. But like basketball, like you're on a court, like you're working your body. And a lot of these gamers, like if they don't have facilities yet or anything like that, they're at home on the computer. They have no separation. They can play anytime. They have access all the time. They're always playing, always working, always getting better. And the competition level is like, it's on 10 because again, everybody's always have access. So it's insane. I'm excited to see where it goes. It's still very much in its infancy, but a lot of money there, a lot of attention there already.
The other thing that seems like it would be an issue to me is that you don't get to practice in private. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you go out into if you're going to practice, you're going to go out into the web, you're going to join whatever forum it is. And again, it's been a few years since I've been engaged. Basically after Halo 2, you know,
It's been a while.
my gaming has.
So yeah, so like these teams, like actually like we did some work with Bucks Gaming here. Like they have a facility here, like awesome facility. They've got like hot pockets and like the freezer and stuff, all these like setups. Like they practice in private all the time because they're all there. And a lot of these teams want them in the same place. But even like organizations that aren't necessarily professional, like they'll practice online. They're practicing together, you know, they're not always streaming it. It's smart to stream it, but they're not always streaming it.
Oh, that's a good that's good. Cause I didn't know that you could do that. Cause in Halo, you got Johnny 674, who's, you know, that's the only way to practice is you got to get in there and join one of those four. That's funny. Actually, just saying the word Halo, I don't even know that I've said that out loud in how long.
Dude, Halo is amazing, man.
Oh, it was the best. Yeah.
I sucked at it, but
oh my
it's
God.
amazing.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's cool. What I loved about listening to you talk about it when you're doing some of the launch videos and that kind of stuff, just working through your content. Like I really liked, like you have, I don't want to call it your day job, but I guess it kind of is because it's your company. And obviously this is what you've grown and built your brand around, this Urban Misfit Ventures. And I want to hear you talk about that as well. But what I think more people should do is embrace passion projects, you know, that could ultimately become businesses. And I think, you know, in some regard, you even mentioned the other day that you've had some people reach out to you about sponsorship or deals for your other business. So it's not a true passion project because it is ultimately providing you with some income, but you're doing it out of, you know, this isn't my main thing. And what I hear you saying is you're learning so much about it. And I just love that. I think more people should take hold of some of these things and just try them. And the best part is, like, if you got 6 months into this and you're like, you know what, I'm good, you could turn it off and you can go right back to what you've always done and try something else. And
dude, it's imperative.
Yeah.
It's imperative that people do that, man. Like, again, like I was like stressing. I'm like, damn, like I'm starting from scratch. Like I've got 0 listeners. Like I've never actually edited a podcast. Like, damn, I've got to do all this. And sorry, there's a siren going by, but like just stressing. And then my girlfriend's like talking to me. And I said, I'm doing this to have fun and to learn and to make my little brother proud. And that's it. And I'm like, damn, I really don't care anymore. I'm good. You know, and like if we do things we want to do, like that's when the success comes. That's why my company's gotten here. You know, it's because we're passionate about it.
Yeah. So let's take the wheel and dial it back to kind of the beginning of you starting to create, at least like in the LinkedIn space and some of these videos you were doing. And you've put, and I will link up some really, I find them to be tremendously valuable kind of, I'm going to call this does not do them justice, but kind of recap videos talking about your evolution and stuff. And I'll link that stuff up, but I'm just super interested in sharing with the audience how you got started to kind of where you are now. Like goes deeper is, you know, just kind of plow through that how you want. But I find it to be tremendously interesting. And I just love for you to share that.
For sure. Out of college, I was offered a job with a wearable tech company and a VR company. I denied them. I did some work for them, but I denied them to start my own thing. And my buddy pulls me aside and he's like, can I interview you like on camera? And I was like, oh my. It's like, all right, I'll do it. He convinced me. And it was probably the worst thing I've ever done in my life. Like I have not shared that video publicly. That's the only one that I have not shared publicly. And it was the worst thing that I've ever done in my life. And I was so embarrassed. And I'm like, this is never going to happen again. And from that point, I recorded a video basically every single day. And it started just me picking up the camera and talking about that company that I was starting. And like, this is what I was feeling that day. And I kept going and I bounced around different platforms. I found some success on like Ask Whale, which most people haven't heard of. And right after that, I moved to LinkedIn. Again, like I had this experience like on camera. I got pretty good at like making things sound good. I got pretty good at being myself and like figuring out why people gravitated towards me. So I started watching these videos because it just released. I wrote some copy, but video was just released and I saw a few people there and I'm like, I can do that better. I can stand out and I can actually like build something here because there's no one else here. So I picked it up and I made a video about how I was so hesitant about making a video on LinkedIn. I waited like 2 weeks after I discovered people. And I started there, man. And then I just started telling stories because people were talking about storytelling, but I didn't really find that it was storytelling. It was like long and extensive, and it wasn't really anything that brought value to people. So I just started interviewing people. Then I started implementing B-roll. I wasn't even a videographer really. I had dabbled with like photography in the past, but started implementing B-roll, started meeting people, started traveling, and I was building this story as I was creating content around other people and other things. And then eventually I met one of my business partners, and we linked up, and I started taking everything to the next level. And I'm super competitive, dude. I wanted to be the first to try everything on LinkedIn. So I just kept trying new things and kept trying new things. And now it's gotten to the point where it's like, damn, like we can literally do anything that we want to do. What do we want to try today? What do we want to experiment with? And not so much on LinkedIn, but just life. But in terms of video, it stemmed from me just being bad at something, and I don't like being bad at something, you know. And then I just really devoted myself to just growing as a person and actually living a story, so that I could then share that story.
What do you think about your personality or your mentality allowed you to be, self-proclaimed bad at something and still publish it online?
Is I had nothing to lose, man. I had absolutely nothing to lose. I was broke. Company was failing. No one was watching my videos already. So the worst that they could say was, wow, this sucks. I'm not going to watch it. And I already had that, you know? So it was just, let's go. Maybe I'll get someone. And that video hit 30,000 views. So I definitely got people, you know, and it was a different time back then, but definitely got people. People definitely watched. And I was like, okay, I've got something.
Yeah. What were some of the early lessons about storytelling that you learned that you had said that you think, a lot of people were, telling stories, but that it didn't seem to add value, and they were,
Yeah.
what was different about the way that you were telling stories?
Yeah, so initially, a lot of what I saw was, "Hey, my name is Quentin Allums, and I'm going to talk to you about personal branding today." And I like this went on with my dog today, you know, and like here we go, and now I'm going to jump in, and then thank you and please subscribe. I'm going to tag a million people in the comments, you know, and maybe that one video would be incredible, right? But then they didn't work that hard to get and keep their followers there. And that was an issue that I saw. They just didn't maintain that relationship. They would work really hard in one video, and then like they hit it big, and that was it. And for me, it was like I had to work really hard, and I needed to prove to myself, because I didn't think I was good enough, and I still don't think I'm good enough really. That I needed to keep them there. I needed to give them a reason, like to stay. I needed to give them the reason to click, and I wanted everything that I created to feel like a drug. I wanted to elicit a response. So for me, I jumped right in, like right away. No one was really using music intentionally, and I was a musician. No one was really using B-roll. No one was truly using like story. Like, I'm going to tell you a story. So I started doing that. And I think like early on, I would just ask people like, hey, like, what's one pivotal moment in your life that led you to becoming the person that you are? They would tell it, and I would show it. You know, I would do something and try to show it. And that was really where I started. But I wanted people to have a reason to click Q when they saw my face. And I was doing like some simple hacks too. Like I saw people just like their thumbnail was out of whack, you know, like it was a black screen. So I'm going to use something that it's like, oh, he looks kind of like good in there, you know, like just simple things like that, which still go a long way. But clearly like people are doing that, but just giving people a reason to stay.
Yeah. I feel like so many people drop the ball like right at the goal line, not to be too sports referencey, but like they put time into the content, they turn on the camera, they gear themselves up, they talk into the thing. And then, like you said, like it never actually ends up. I guess what I'm trying to say is what I heard you just describe is a very audience focused mentality. And I feel like the issues that I see in a lot of creators who are struggling is that they have a very self-oriented mentality. And it may not even mean that. I don't mean that they're selfish or actually self-oriented people. It just, their content comes off as it's what's important to them. And I from watching your work, it is very obvious that you are creating for the people that are watching it. You know what I mean? That just comes through. It's why I think people relate to what you're doing in your work, and they watch your stuff. So how, what advice would you give? What, whatever, from your own experience, if someone is feeling that, and they even kind of unconsciously understand that they have this problem and just not know how to refocus, what are some things that maybe you could let them know, or tips that you could give them?
Dude, it's hard. it's really hard. And like when I first started, I was nowhere near the caliber that I am now. And I know a few months from now, I will be nowhere near the caliber that I am then. So it's definitely, it's not easy. It's totally not easy. Like I would start with like reaching out to people that you know you're creating for, like that persona, like, and just ask them like, why do you watch my stuff? Or like, what do you want to see? You know, like just actually talk to those people. I started a group. Originally it was called House of Starters. Now it's House of Misfits. You know, my whole brand has been built around this idea of being a misfit, about being different. I started that group so I could just talk to people all the time. They could talk to me and I could learn from them and I could connect them. And it's gotten to the point where they pick me up from the airport if I'm in their city, you know, and vice versa. So I would just say talk to those people is a really, really good place to start. And from there, like you've got to test, you got to pivot, you got to change, because if I stayed the same as when I first started, I would not be where I am. And if you stay the same, you're clearly not evolving, you're not changing, and it's very hard to keep people there if you're always the same. So talk, open that dialogue, and know who you're actually speaking to, and it's a lot easier to speak to those people.
Yeah. There's this fitness guy that I used to follow. His name is Brian Mazza, and he has this saying called nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah.
And it's so simple. And I say it to myself all the time, every time I'm feeling boring or I'm feeling like what I'm creating is contrived, I literally will say to myself, like, nothing changes if nothing changes. Like, make some change. Like, don't wear a hoodie in this video. Like, you know what I mean? Like, make the background blue instead of purple.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's just that stupid little change that gets your brain to think about something different. Or maybe if I'm, you know, I again, you can probably tell like how old I am, like with Halo. Like, I love 90s gangster rap. I just do. Like,
Hey
what I was
man,
raised with,
I dig it.
you know, like give me a solid, like a real lyricist with a 90s rap beat behind it, and I could listen to that shit all day long. But sometimes, like, if I'm listening to that and nothing's coming out of it for me, because I've had a tremendous amount of creativity, because I think that those guys at that time were some of the, you know, most raw and real lyricists that maybe the music industry has ever seen since maybe like some of the 60s rock and roll, like country rock and roll that was coming out of the West. But sorry, and you know, I don't know. So that all being said, you know, like I'll switch it up. I'll start listening to classical music, like something like what's the opposite of what I've been listening to, and see if I can pull anything out of that. So that's what I say. That I just completely agree with you. Like, nothing changes if nothing changes. Like, if you're always doing the same thing, eventually people already know they know the punchline, so they're not going to watch. They're going to skip it, and that's not good. So the next thing I kind of wanted to get into with you is the idea of personal branding. And I know you talk about this a lot. I think I watched a video that you did the other day about the reactions to you. So you used to wear like a black hat or a hat in all your videos.
I still do.
And then you stopped wearing it and people like went bananas. And you did this video about how, and I'll put this in the show notes, but like how that hat, you know, that doesn't define your personal brand. I just love for you to talk a little bit about maybe personal branding in general and your perspective on it. And then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah. I think my ideology on personal branding really comes from definitely a handful of sources. One, Brittany Crystal, who's worked with like Gary Vee and Tom Bilyeu on their personal brand, just incredible human being, one of my friends, and I've just learned a lot from her. A lot of it comes from her, but also my time as a musician. And just like these other unconventional areas of my life, like as an athlete, you know, a lot of people look at brand as like this just stagnant thing. Like, I believe in honor, you know, or respect, or I make videos or blah. And for me, it's so much more than that. Like, you like 90s, like hip hop, right? If you think of your favorite artist, it's probably more than the lyrics. It's probably more than the sound. It's probably more than the music. It's probably more than the way that they look, more than the way that they dress, but it is all of that. It's their beliefs. It's all of that. It's a feeling. How do they make you feel when you hear them talk, when you see them standing there, when you're meeting them in person? It's so much more than a look or a thing that you do or function. It's a feeling. Just like a musician, you know, Adele walks on stage, like before she starts singing, I'm like, damn, I'm listening, you know, because I know what to expect and I know what she believes in and I know why I connect with her. That's brand. That's personal branding. I think a lot of people get stuck because it's, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I can't start a video games podcast. I'm a personal branding guy. I can't talk about music, and they get stuck in that, but it's just, how do you make people feel? I know I could turn around and sell rubber ducks tomorrow because I know that I know who I am and I know how to communicate that, So brand for me is personal brand, or just brand in general. It's a feeling. And I think that really comes from my time with being a musician. And Brittany specifically, she something that really influenced me. She talks about clarity, and I think as a society, we're in love with this idea of personal branding, and it's kind of what I do for a living. So I get it, but like, build your brand, tell your story, and I hate it because we push that on people before they really know who they are. And I think we need to have that self-awareness and that clarity around us before we can communicate it, because people can't follow you if you don't know who you are or where you're going. So I would say the biggest influence are Brittany, Crystal, and just my time as a musician as well.
How do you figure out who you are?
Dude, everyone's trying to figure it out, like nothing changes as nothing changes. Again, so like, big event happened in my life, just crappy event like recently. And my business coach, the one from the entrepreneur thing, he's like, okay, like, you have always known who you are, like, and that's a part of who you are. That's self-awareness. You're grounded. And now you've got to kind of figure that out again. Like, what's your favorite food? He asked me. I said, PB&J. Don't judge me if you're listening to that. I love PB&J. He's like, okay, initially, like, to figure out that you love PB&J, you had to try mac and cheese. You had to try hot dogs. You had to try all these different things. And then you're like, oh my God, I really like this. Right? Exploration. And then stage 2, it's like, okay, you're going to mention it to your mom or your dad and make sure that it's there, and they're going to put PB&Js in your lunches, and eventually you start finding them there all the time. Stage 3, you start morphing your environment. So I'm going to have a system. When we're down on peanut butter, I'm going to tell my mom, okay, you need to put this on the list, right? So you are back at stage 1. You need to figure out where you need to go. You need to test new things. Maybe try something that you've never done, try something that scares you. It's probably similar to who you were, but it's probably in the same spectrum, but you got to go back to that stage 1 and figure out who you are. So it's all exploration, man. I feel like nobody truly knows everything about themselves because we change all the time, and that's okay.
How would you talk someone through, like, whether you build your personal brand or you don't, you have one, right? Like, because it's other people's perception of the value that you bring to them. And that's, so it's not like you get control over it. You get to be who you are. And that's what the brand becomes to a certain extent. And it's what they see, right? So, or, some version of that. I'm sure we could debate that a little bit, which I'm actually happy to do. But my question for you, because I think this is something that certainly I run into a lot. So my expertise was not something as fun as being a musician, although I wish I was. I have very limited musical ability, unless you count singing like Wu-Tang or Gang Starr in the shower.
I do, man. I do.
So, or Mos Def, who's probably my favorite. But what I find is in the insurance industry, a lot of times I run into men and women who, like, their career has taken them into a place, right? And they get to a place and maybe it's as successful as they hope to be. Maybe it's somewhere between that and unsuccessful, but they've gotten to this place, and that place is just successful enough that it's very hard for them emotionally to pivot out of that place, even if they know who they actually are is somebody that's slightly over here. You know what I mean? So like, what, just in your experience, and I just, like, again, I find your perspective very valuable. So I'm interested in it. Like that person who has somehow wedged themselves into a brand or a position or a state, there's expectations on that person that they're this thing. But really, when they wake up in the morning, before they get dressed and they put on all these clothes that they're supposed to put on for this thing over here, before they get here, they're this person over here. How do you start to make that transition? What advice would you give to that person who wants to make that change or just wants to start to move in that place? Does that make sense?
No, it's a good question. I think the old me would say something along the lines of, if you're not pivoting or you're not taking the jump, then you don't want it bad enough. So just stay where you are. I think the old me would say something like that. And I think where I'm at now, like, I did that, right? I jumped and I struggled, and I barely ate. I wasn't feeding my dog sometimes, or we were sharing my food, like rice and chicken. And I I don't want that for other people. And I think there's a lot of bad advice out there, which is you should just jump. You should just do it. And maybe if that works for you, if you can afford to just jump and not eat, and eat ramen noodles or whatever it is, totally do that. But in terms of making that transition, it's again like what I probably needed to hear before all this happened for my esports podcast is like, what can I do now? Like to start making that transition, because you probably do want it, because you are thinking about it. Maybe you're not ready to do it. Maybe you are ready to do it. Like ask yourself those questions, get clear on who you are and like how you can take those next steps, and just figure out step one and figure out the end goal. Do that long-term thinking, like I like to get stuck in, but also that short-term action, like what are some things that I can do now so that I can get myself there, and figure out that time frame and just do it. If you want it, just do it, because it's totally possible. And then find some people that are doing those things, and you'll probably accelerate it and achieve it faster. I've got 22-year-olds around me driving Maseratis and making millions of dollars, like they're younger than me, like just freaking dominating. I have people around me, all ages, all like backgrounds, just dominating. That makes me better. So don't just quit your job,
Yeah.
Don't listen to that advice, but figure out what works for you. And if my advice is bullshit, don't listen to me either. Like just figure out what works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad, there was a brief period of time in my life where I was a halfway decent baseball player. And when I was 15 years old, my dad pulled me aside after a game and he said, like, I'm done. Like, I've literally taught you everything that I can teach you. He goes, so what's going to happen now is like other people are going to teach you. And he goes, 90% of what they tell you is going to be nonsense. He goes, take that nonsense and throw that out and just keep the 10% that actually works for you. And he said, and then do that enough times that you get to 100% of good stuff. But it's never going to be all from one person, and it's never going to be exactly the same as those other people said. He said a lot of crazy shit, but that's always felt pretty real to me.
10%.
That's always felt pretty real. So, man, you've talked about this company that you have. I'd love to just, hear a little bit more about it. I want to be respectful of your time and everything. But what does Urban Misfit Ventures do? Is that the only part of the company? Are there sub companies? Like what exactly is the work? Like when you wake up in the morning and you're working on your day job, not the podcast we've discussed so far, but like, what is that work? Like, who are you interacting with, and where are you trying to take them?
Yeah. So Urban Misfit Ventures, I know it's a weird name. So we currently own two companies, one being a content agency. So we work and content agency with a personal branding focus, but we do other work. We work with brands, companies, and people to help them build influence through story. So a lot of video, a lot of strategy on that end. And the part that I'm really excited about is the events company, which is MK Misfits, where we're really focused now on more exclusive and signature experiences, looking at like the sneaker culture and video game culture and fashion culture, never doing the same event ever again, but just exclusive, invite only, last minute, but weird experiences. So that side, and then the agency side, and my role really within that, I head up like the event side because I'm weird and I want my hands in everything, and it's really hard for me to let go of control, but right now they need me. And then on the company itself, I'm really just focused on sales. Izzy leads sales, but I'm focused on sales, and then just ultimately vision. And then when I need to step in, I do. But what's coming next? Like, where should we be going? Like, should we roll out this new offering? And then just really just sales and just getting myself out there so that I can drive leads for the company. So I don't really work in the business. Myself and Izzy really work on the business, and then get an ops guy that just is amazing. And then he really manages the team.
Yeah. Interesting about the event side, like you read what I believe is completely nonsense, that like events are dying. And I do believe that crappy events are dying. Events that don't adjust and morph and change and serve their people, that just act as like a watering hole or an oasis in the desert that we're just supposed to show up to by obligation when we travel some path. And I feel like those are drying up very much so. But I am completely into events in general because and this is, I'm just interested, there's a little bit of context to the actual question. And I'm a horrible interviewer in that way.
No, dude, you're actually really good. Don't say that about yourself.
So, so my point is, like, I feel like the pendulum has swung way too far towards digital. And I know we're only going to go that way. But what I mean is I feel like it swung way too far towards digital at the expense of humanity. And what I think it is there's two pendulums. It's two different things. Like we absolutely have to have a human aspect. Like we didn't, a million years of evolution doesn't lead towards us just sitting in little pods with VR glasses on playing games. Like that's a huge part of our life. And I get that. And I think it's completely cool. And I can't wait to see what comes out next. Like most likely I'll live vicariously through my child who will be plugged into that. But I can't wait to see what it is. But the other side of it is like, I almost feel like there's this move away from us breathing the same air and bumping into each other, and like the serendipity of like plopping the muse on your shoulder and just seeing where she takes you. Like that piece of it to me is so incredibly important. So I'm interested just in your take in general on the health of events. And you what you just described very briefly were probably not the events that most people in say a more corporate role would have an interaction with. But I'm super interested in maybe like what have you seen like that mixture of it? Like I don't know. I live in Albany, New York, so cool events like that don't happen here. But so I'm just interested. That's a big broad question.
I think that there's two things that I'll touch on. First, like to give you an idea, one day like we're just brainstorming and Izzy walks in. He's like, yo, like we got this project. What do you guys want to do? And I'm like, we should do an event. Just do an experience. And we start brainstorming. So this is what we came up with. Like made a list of about 20, 35 people that we knew were movers and shakers, probably didn't know each other, probably didn't have a relationship, or at least a strong relationship. They were movers and shakers in Milwaukee or near Milwaukee. Send them a message 2 days before we decided to do this event. Are you in? It's probably going to be something about mental health. Nothing else. So they give us thumbs up, right? So day of, we send them texts with location, with time, and again, like that's it. And they show up, everything's locked, they can't get in, like they're all forced to talk to each other. We're in the other room. They open it up, they walk in. When they walk in, they get a number on their hand. I was number 0. And from there, like 1, 2, 3, right? Eventually, like they see a person on the piano, which is just random as hell, right? See a bar. They can get a drink if they want to. And then there's a stage. There's a soapbox. There's a mic above you. And then there's a bunch of lights in that area. And I walk up and I'm like, yo, welcome to our experiment. Just want to thank you for coming. You're all here for a reason. And for us, like the biggest thing is like, we're entrepreneurs, we're creatives, whatever label you want to give us as of all of you. And we struggle with opening up. It's like, hey, Q, how are you doing? Good. Hey, how are you doing? I'm good. And like, that's it. And we don't go past that. We don't go beyond that. We really wanted to open up. So you got a number on your hand. Here's a prompt. I'm going to start. What are you struggling with, or what have you struggled with? And I opened up about like the growth of my company, the growth of me as a human being, and how like with that, it's very hard to think that people actually care about me. And the next person opened up about like sexual abuse. Our team expected 5 to 10 people to go up and talk. Every single person in that room talked. We created this film around it, this experience around it. And it was the most real and raw shit that I've ever seen in my life. And it made me rethink everything that we've done events wise. We want to go in that direction, or we're intentional, So I think, again, humans are wired for connection, man. Like 1,000% wired for connection. When we get into technology, like I think we're in this big feedback loop, right? Like caveman communities, right? Like let's go hunt, like let's make a fire. Like we're here together, but we're still kind of distant from the other people, right? Technology comes in, disconnect. Even before that, of course, there's a disconnect, but technology disconnect, but we're kind of connected. And I think eventually what technology is designed to do, I think we have a very shitty relationship with technology right now, but when we get there, it's designed to connect us, and we're on a feedback loop, and we'll get to that point where we're caveman, we're hunting, we're fire, like not actually hunting, and creating fires, but we're together, but on a larger scale. We're connected to everything, and hopefully like we get there and it's a good relationship with technology. And I think there's some things that have to change with that, but human connection 1000% is necessary. And I think events will always be a thing. People literally tuned in to Fortnite, which I think is the future of social media, like that world, that landscape. I already think it's a social media platform. Like so many people tuned into Ninja and I think it was Marshmello collaborating on a concert or something, or just Marshmello, like an EDM guy, like concert in a digital world. That's an event, like that is an event. Humans are wired for connection. We want to be together. Social media is just an extension of us, right? So 1000%, I think they'll always be a thing. Even if we are, and we get to that point where we're Wally and we're fat as hell sitting in a little hover chair, events will still be a thing. Always.
Yeah. It is, I completely agree with you. I just think that there is the connections that I've made in the digital world are only amplified by the moments that we've spent, even if they're brief, in person. And when you do not have that connection with somebody, like, we've had a good conversation. This has been a good conversation, right? If we were able to have this conversation in person, it may have been even better. But this starts the ball. And then if I'm in Milwaukee, hey, maybe I text you, maybe we bump into each other someplace. I actually love Milwaukee. I used to do a lot of business down in the third ward.
Yes, we're right. We're a block out of the third ward. We're downtown.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite cities in the entire country by far. Just good people, awesome food, great beer, all things that I love. So, and a northern culture, which is another thing that I'm a fan of. My southern brothers and sisters, but you're soft compared to us northerners. So, I believe so strongly in events, and I just hope that people keep trying new things like what you're describing, and small batch is super interesting to me. Like these more intimate things. I like big events too, because there's a lot of serendipity that happens in these biggest spaces, but the intimacy of providing people with a platform like you did to open up, to me is capturing that in conjunction with digital, like mashing those two things together, giving people that time together where they're breathing that same air, and then the platform to expand those conversations in a digital world when they go home and their minds start to relax or open up or whatever. I just think that's a great place to be. And I'm glad creative dudes who seem to have some guts to actually make them happen. I'm glad that you're doing that. So my man, this has been tremendous. I very much appreciate you and your time and your willingness to share with us on a show today. Where is the best place for people to connect with you and just engage with what you have going on and get to know you a little better?
Yeah, if you search at tag just Q, Q the letter, so tag TAGJUSTQ on any social media platform, I should pop up. Just started a new podcast called Humans That Game. If you're interested more in the business side, we also have Strange on Purpose. That's our company podcast, but tag just Q, just about anywhere. I'm active everywhere. Gonna spend more time on TikTok as well, but I'm really active everywhere. But LinkedIn's probably my main platform.
Yeah. Great, man. And for everyone listening at home, I'll have all this stuff linked up on the show notes as well. So if you just want to go there, you can get out or just go direct. You don't have to go to my website.
Go to his website.
Yeah. Just love to see that Google Analytics pop up, right? Give me that little hit of dopamine that we all need. So,
yes.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. We're going to get out of here.